Hello and welcome to Ruggles Roundup. It's the portion of our Elevated Mission podcast where we talk about all things sports. We're super excited to bring this episode to you. All right, we want to come and talk to you guys about the way too early college football top 10. Just a ridiculous time to put this out there, but everybody else is doing it as well, so we might as well join the group. Well, Ian, you've put a lot of research into this. You've got in-depth knowledge about these teams that are coming back, what's happening at spring practice, and all those kind of things. So give us some of that wisdom you got.
Well, I mean, I made this about 2 weeks ago, and so I've almost changed some of my opinions on this, but we'll stick with what I got written down here right now.
Well, the transfer portal's crazy, the coaching carousel's crazy, so a lot of these things have changed.
Has boosted up has boosted up myself. I already had them at number 4 on my list, but they may be even higher than that because of just all of the best transfer portal class is going to Ohio State. Just so much talent going over there.
And then I think they even upgraded when, they brought in, O'Brien to come be the offensive coordinator to kind of boost that offense. And then he gets the job at Boston College. And then now they're bringing in Chip Kelly. I mean, you just talk about, just coaching staff. Let's listen to
surrounding yourself with head coaches is something I always think is a smart idea, because then you can kind of leave. You can go, okay, I can focus on being a head coach and I can let that guy be the offense, and I can really focus on everything else. And I think that's one thing that Urban Meyer did so well with, was he always hired really good coordinators and really good developers of talent. And Chip Kelly is definitely a great developer of talent, and I love that hire. But let's get into it. We'll start with some of my honorable mentions that should be in there, as I have Tennessee, Notre Dame, and LSU all in my honorable mention list.
Always got studs on the field at those programs.
Oh yeah, it's hard to debate them not being in the top 10, but I got a few guys that I really enjoy coming back into the college football game that I think are going to push these guys ahead. We'll start off with number 10, Utah, as my one note is Cam Rising, the very, very talented player, as he can really good quarterback, played fantastic for them just last year, as he threw for a total of, let me check in, he threw for 3,034 yards at 64 completion percentage, 26 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. Just looked really good in 2022, and I expect him to only improve as he heads into his senior year.
Well, and you got, Utah has really been the pride of the Pac 12, Pac 14, 10, now 0. The Pac 0, they've really been the pride of that conference, in the last 5 years. And so you got to just say, as they step now into the Big 12 and into a little bit different situation, that's where they're headed, right? The Big 12. Very much a different situation. You've got Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12. And so I think that's another conference that they can go dominate. And so, you see an easy pathway to a 12-team playoff for Utah.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely very, very impressive stuff for Utah. And they're always one of those teams that are just a hard-nosed matchup. Next up at number 9, I had Missouri, and a big thing to that, they have a lot of good returning talent, and the addition of one of my favorite ads out of Georgia State, the good old Panthers, Marcus Carroll. He's a very dynamic running back. He had 1,350 yards on 274 carries last year. He also added in 234 receiving yards along with that. He's a dynamic back that can get it done both receiving and passing, and I think he's going to just blossom into the star that I think he's going to become in Missouri.
Missouri's a tough out. They've got a lot of talent. They're well coached. I love a good, Georgia State transfer portal, looking out. Georgia State's always has been in the last few years been a school with a lot of talent on the field. And if you can get one of those guys to come over to your program, fill in that missing piece, I like that. I like that call as well. Missouri, definitely that next tier right behind the top 4 this last year, was one of those teams that you go, if they got in, Could they make some noise? They might have been able to. I love that we have a 12-team playoff. And, don't sell Missouri short on this year. I think they've got a clear pathway to that playoff as well.
Oh, absolutely. At number 8, I had Alabama, which it seemed so low for Alabama, but they lost Nick Saban. And so if Nick Saban was still there, they're probably in that top 6, top 5 conversation. But I just can't see it with the loss of Nick Saban. They lost a ton of recruits going the other way, but they also are Alabama. They have that tradition of developing, being a dominant program. They're still going to have a ton of 5 stars there, but just not quite at the level of what I thought Nick Saban brought there. And so Alabama falling to number 8 for me.
They're still going to have one of the most talented rosters in college football, and I love their coach. He's won at every place he's been. It was a great hire for Alabama. When you lose the GOAT, right, you lose Nick Saban. He's out now, going to do some broadcasting. I don't know what else he's going to do with his spare time, but he's no longer there. He's no longer in the building. You got to make that great hire. They were able to get it done, but those recruits are not his guys, right? So a lot of them left. We're going to talk about a lot of them a little bit later here in this list, as they found a real track. They found a train leading right up to Ohio, but I won't get into that yet. But still, super deep, talented roster full of 4 and 5 stars, maybe still the most in the country down there in Alabama. So this may be low for them. I don't disagree with you in the placing necessarily, but with all that talent, with a great coach and coaching staff, Alabama, it just feels a little wrong for me to see an 8 in front of them.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's weird. It was hard for me to put them there as well. But as soon as I start talking about these other guys, I mean, it's hard to argue that these teams aren't going to be dominant. And my number 7, it starts with Penn State. I mean, crazy that Penn State is going to probably be the 3rd best team in the Big Ten. Because they'll be behind Ohio State and behind Michigan in my eyes. But they have a guy who I really am hoping develops. He's 6'5", 245 pounds, Drew Aller. He threw for over 2,000 yards last season, but just was kind of hit or miss. He was under 60% completion percentage, just right below it, but just not where you wanted to be. You want to see more high volume passing stats, but if he can develop, he can really become a dynamic game changer. He was 25 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, so the touchdown to interception ratio is there. You just want to see more yards per completion, as well as a higher completion percentage.
Well, I think you actually have them 4th in the Big Ten in your list here. Got to remember the new adds to the Big Ten.
Yes.
So there's some power coming into the Big Ten as well. You got all that. You got Washington, you got Oregon, you got UCLA, and you got USC all coming into the Big Ten as well. So that is stacked. SEC adds a couple more powers as well with Oklahoma and Texas. I mean, it's the haves and the have-nots in these conferences right now, and the Big Ten and the SEC are loaded for bear. But yeah, Penn State. I got 2 guys on my elevated mission board that are Penn State football alum, and they're going to tell you, I don't know. Penn State's got a lot of things going for them, but they haven't been able to get it done in the big game. They're really hoping that they can get it done this year. The great thing for them is even if they do finish 4th in the Big Ten, they probably still end up in this playoff, the 12-team playoff this year, because we know that's a talented group of teams up there in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State really reminds me a lot of that young Michigan squad before J.J. McCarthy developed into the quarterback that he became, where they had great run talent. They got an offensive line. They got a defense. It's just question marks at that quarterback spot. And once J.J. McCarthy developed into that guy, that's when you saw Michigan take that step into national championship territory. And I think Penn State, if Drew Aller can take that step from being a good quarterback to being an elite quarterback, you're going to see Penn State even move up from higher than that number 7 spot. Next up on the list is number 6, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a nice spot because they always got good returning talent, and I like their quarterback. more than I like most returning quarterbacks coming back. You're talking about a guy that just passed for 3,000 yards at 23 touchdowns, the 5 interceptions, with a 65% completion percentage, has thrown 60% in 2021, 2022, and in 2023. He's just a guy that's been consistently developing each and every year, and I think he's just going to continue to get better.
Absolutely. Ole Miss, one of those teams that, they're always just a little bit outside or just inside the top 10 every year. It feels like that team that's just about to make that move. Penn State and Ole Miss. Watch for them this year. Can they make that next jump? They feel like they could be poised for it, but there's a lot of good teams just ahead of them here in your list that you go, I don't know. It's so talent-rich in these top 5 teams in these rankings.
Yeah. I'm very quarterback driven in these rankings. If you can't tell so far, as I think Ole Miss is one of those very big flex teams where they could be at number 6, they could be outside the top 10 in my eyes. Same with Penn State. Utah, surprisingly, I'm a little bit more confident in them being in the top 10, just because they're usually just really good throughout the regular season.
They're so consistent, and I think that move to the Big 12 is going to actually get more wins for them. Watch them to increase their win totals as they go to the Big 12.
Yeah, now a team that I have dropping back a bit, and that's because they were basically at this spot before they had an elite quarterback. They don't have an elite quarterback anymore because it's Michigan. J.J. McCarthy leaving for the NFL draft. They do have that really great dual threat quarterback, Orgy, out there that can definitely get out there, and he had a few nice run plays, but we just haven't seen the arm yet.
No,
and if he can't develop into that elite quarterback, I see Michigan still being one of the best programs in college football, but just not quite into that top 4 range like they have been consistently for the last 3 years.
They know how to get it done at the offensive line. They know how to get it done on defense. We'll see with some new coaches having to come in and keep that thing rolling. But when you've got those things solid on both sides of the ball at the line position, you can win a lot of games with that. You got a running back coming back, but it is a big piece you have to, make up for with JJ and Jim both heading for the NFL. Your defensive coordinator heading for the NFL. Just a lot of things changed there in Ann Arbor. But I'll say this, J.J. McCarthy, so interesting. Shooting up the NFL draft boards, you got Jim Harbaugh saying he won't be surprised if he's the first quarterback taken. That's a stretch because he has a long way to move right now in most boards, but he's already starting to creep up. I think he's going to give a great performance in the combine. And it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up landing and what he does at the next level. But Michigan's got big shoes to fill there.
Oh, absolutely. Now moving on to the top 4. These are definitely my solidified top 4 teams in college football. I won't move any other teams into this top 4 before season starts because these teams are talent loaded and it's going to be fun to watch them compete. And we're starting off with number 4, which I already said could be number 1 on my list very easily. You could talk me into that, and that's Ohio State.
Yeah. So much talent there. I mean, Alabama literally just started shooting. Players started shooting up from Alabama right over to Columbus, Ohio, and started making that move. They made some moves on the coaching staff that I think only improved the room. And so Ohio State, they are going to be a hard out this year. So much talent, 4 and 5 stars everywhere. Great coaching staff. If they can't get it done this year with everything that's there, I wouldn't even surprised if Chip Kelly makes one more move into that HC role at the end of the year if they don't get it done this year and win a national championship.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a transfer quota that includes Julian Sayin, 5-star, Caleb Downs, 5-star, Quinston Junskin out of Ole Miss, 4-star, Seth McLaughlin, 4-star, and other really good talents. Will Howard, another good QB who's a 4-star out of Kansas State. Really, really talented portal they got there, and they're going to be a hard team to face off with. But then it's just the question marks on the congealing together of a team,
Yeah.
because when you have so many people transferring in, you saw this with Joe Burrow when he first got to LSU. They were not that team that we saw that following year when Joe Burrow had still all that same talent, but they had finally come together as a team, and he figured out how to throw it to Justin Jefferson, figured out how to throw it to Jamar Chase. And so that's my question mark. How does this transfer portal affect this team with so many new players being introduced?
100%. No, that's going to be a fun team to watch. That's for sure.
Now, here's my number 1/number 2 team in the Big Ten. Number 3 on this list, Oregon. And that is because I love their QB wide receiver duo. You got Dylan Gabriel coming out of Oklahoma, and then you got Tez Johnson sticking around, who's just both very, very talented players that I think are going to be hard to stop as a duo in that Oregon offense.
They couldn't get it done this last year against Washington twice. I think minus those 2 games, most people would have said that looks like a top 4 team, should be in the playoffs last year. And you know what? They're going to be coming for it again this year. Super talented roster. I think they know how to get it done. They're going to have one more year of experience. They're going to now be in a battle-tested Big Ten. It's going to look a little bit different for them than the Pac-12 did. Just more bruisers up front, from team to team. And you have to go play in some muck and some grime a lot more than you did, back in the Pac-12. But look for Oregon to have a great season, to be in those playoffs at the end of the year, and to definitely be a team to watch for as we get around playoff time.
Oh, yeah. And just another shout out to the transfer Dylan Gabriel going over there, as he threw for 69.3%, 3,660 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions in that 2023 season. That's hard to compete with. And adding him to an already very offensive skilled roster, he's going to, I think, thrive in that system.
Yeah, hard to argue with those numbers. Those are pretty good numbers. I don't care where you play,
Yeah. Number 2, next up, we got maybe the most talented team to not make the college football playoffs this last year, Georgia.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that you could have added a 5th team into that Final Four that we had, put Georgia in, and they could have came out on top, as well. But, I mean, kudos to Michigan, obviously. They got it done on the field. But Georgia, just – year in, year out, just they get it done. Right now, they are the cream of the crop in college football.
Yeah, that's kind of all I got to say about them as well. Is they just get the best recruits. They're today's Alabama, and so It's hard to beat Georgia. And I have trust that they're always going to replenish that talent, no matter how much talent they lose. So we'll move into probably the best returning talent, not having to have a bunch of transfer portal guys come in. You already have them in-house, and that's Texas at number 1. I really like the fact that they just have so many returners. They went out there, and they were a very competitive team this last year, and I think that they're going to be even better this upcoming year.
Oh, yeah. They put so much money in the NIL. They brought in the players that they wanted. They've got a great squad. They got into the Final Four this last year. Can they take that next step here? It's going to be an interesting watch. Sark, can he get it done in the big game? All those kind of questions are out there for Texas, but man, they got a lot of talent all the way down to their long snapper, a friend of my son, St. Louis out there, just the number 1 long snapper in the country.
Yeah, attaboy. Definitely awesome stuff there. Quinn Ewers is a guy that's been developing each and every year. I didn't believe in him in the beginning of his career, and he's proved me wrong since. I mean, last year he went and threw 3,400 yards, 69 completion percentage, 22 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. It's hard to argue with the progression there, and I expect him to just continue to get better in that with that Texas roster.
I definitely think he took a step that I wasn't sure he actually had in him to take last year. Very impressive season for him, and we'll see if he can take again that next step as he chooses not to go into the NFL, but to stay one more year with the Longhorns. So, hey guys, that's our Ruggles Roundup Elevated Mission podcast. Way too early college football top 10. Ian, thanks for all the research and giving us all this great insight. We'll see you guys next time. Well, thank you for watching and listening to Ruggles Roundup on the Elevated Mission podcast. Make sure if you're on YouTube, you click the subscribe and you click the like button. We love that you're out there listening and watching us talk about all things sports. We'll see you next time.